Okay, so start. Okay, Fraser Faulkner, the most southern ETNZ exec, and it's my pleasure to bring this session to you today. And it's my great pleasure to introduce our people once they all get here. We've got Nick Tomlin in Auckland, Paul O'Brien in Wellington, and Andre Goldsmith when he turns up, and Deb McGuire. So currently we've got Paul and Deb. So I'll do a wee bit of housekeeping stuff first, then I'll get you guys to introduce yourselves and tell everybody a bit about yourselves, just in case they don't know who you are. And then we'll go from there. Yeah, so all the Zoom links for this afternoon are on the ETNZ website with information and so forth. The next sessions after we finish here are storytelling, creating visitor experiences and exhibitions, and technical information in schools. So they're next up. The lobby space is open for you to hang out, network, talk to people. Within this webinar, if you could please use the Q&A and we will answer those as we go along. And the trade show passport is returning. So when the link pops up, click on it. And you're going to the chance to win some prizes from some of our trade show people that have missed out on displaying their wares in person. Thank yous. I'd like to thank Multimedia and Verlo for assisting us with the whole conference, taking it online in such a short space of time. Sam Menance, Malloy, Creative Ambience, Spencer Airwalker, Mike, Q Theatre, Burnside High for creating viewing centres and studios, all the other members of the exec for their hard work. The speakers that we've got here today, and the trade show exhibitors. And there's a heap of those, Aspiring Safety, Fiasco, Jans, John Herber Limited, Kenderdine Electrical, LSC Group, MDR Lighting, Sound and Lighting, Metro Productions, Scenic Solutions, Showquip, Show Technology, Stage Mark, Theatre Light, and ULA Group. And suppliers that were supporting the physical conference that now not doing anything. Transport or production transport, Grouse, Metro, Sugar Sisters, Defaya, Foxglove, Southern Cross, Strongback Crewing, and Hiremaster. So let's start in with the bios. Ladies first, Deb.
Hi, I'm Deb. I work at Circa Theatre in Wellington and technical manager here, which means I do a lot of logistics and organising. Quite often, excuse me, I've been working in some kind of entertainment world since a very long time ago, about 30 years. I can tell you a long story about how I started as a triangle player, but I won't. Moved on to radio and then ended up somehow in lighting, and then they needed somebody with sort of logistical, practical, organisy type stuff here at Circa. So I'm here doing that these days. And I have 2 children and they're in school, thank goodness. And that's probably me in a nutshell. Does that sound about right?
You're telling the story. Excellent. Paul.
Yeah, kia ora. I'm Paul O'Brien, Head of Technical and Production at Tawhiri in Wellington. Tawhiri is the parent organisation that manages New Zealand Festival, Wellington Jazz Festival, Lexus Songquest, Second Units, which is an immersive production team, and we've also got a construction facility in Avalon. I started in the industry in 1985, originally from Christchurch. I've spent most of my life working for production companies, hire companies, or independent theatre producers. Spent a bit of time at the Hannah in Wellington, Michael Fowler Centre, Grouse Lighting, Oceania Lighting, and was Oceania Lighting before I joined Tawhiri.
Excellent. Looks like we've got Andre on the go there now.
Right.
Yeah, look, I hope you're not driving.
No. I'm parked in a paddock, partway setting up a Matariki event.
Excellent. I've just done the intros and the housekeeping bits and pieces, and we're just going through bios now. And guess what? You're up. So if you could tell everybody a bit about yourself, because there'll be a few people out there that don't know who you are.
I started what seems a long time ago in the industry, pushing boxes for a company called Associated Theatre Services in my teens, and kind of did that for a while and disappeared overseas. Ended up running pubs and learning management skills, and then when I came back from that sort of sojourn, I got back into doing concerts and theatre and just being a freelancer about town. And at that time, I probably worked for just about every company in Auckland and just about every theatre in the country with various touring shows. So that's gone on. At some point, we moved to Christchurch, which was in the early 90s, and we set up what is Hang Up. And we traded as Hang Up for nearly 30 years. And most recently, we've formed an association with Electrotech Services and set up an umbrella company, which we're about to change the name of. So, and here we are. The umbrella company was a good idea until COVID hit, and having 30 employees, which is what we had when COVID hit, caused an awful lot of headache and grey hairs. We're currently sitting at about 18 or 19. So yeah, we're doing okay, but it's a hard road.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and I'd have to say, nice cameo in Lucas's video yesterday at the AGM.
Yeah, probably didn't do me justice, but there you go.
Yeah, excellent. Hey, so anyway, we're here today. Where's the line? What defines a junior and a senior practitioner, and how to develop opportunities for growth? Who would like to start? Go on. Who's keen?
I'll start. I don't mind.
I'll start. Yeah.
A senior tech is generally a self-starter who sees things without being told. It's not necessarily age related, although most of being a senior directly relates to experience, and that means a younger tech can be a senior, but it depends on their experience level. Does that make sense? So if you've got someone that's come through high school, gone directly into a theatre, maybe done some AmDram type shows, they will have a lot of experience in some areas, but they won't necessarily be client focused, where an older tech who has had to deal one-on-one with a client and put all of those skills together does become an experienced tech. Good starting point.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. I had a lot of the same as Andre. I often, and I took it for, it was a really good meditation actually, this topic. I have seen a lot of older technicians who you often wonder about whether they should be considered seniors, and the reverse is that you can get some wonderful young people straight out of school who have got great skill sets, and also I think what it comes down to is that leadership ability, or they can pinpoint other people in their team that have got great skill sets and push them to the front. So yeah, I agree with Andre and all those points.
Excellent. Anything to add there, Deb?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you guys as well. It definitely is quite obvious when there's a person with experience in the area that they're trying to work in. Like, you can get an experienced soundie who won't have a clue how to turn on lights or where the light switch is, or anything like that. I've got a work experience student here at the moment on Fridays, and he has more qualifications than I do. He's in 7th form as I knew it, whatever that is, year 13. He's got higher first aid skills. He's got elevated work tickets. He's got working at height. He's got things up the wazoo, because that's what he's been doing all the way through his secondary school. I don't have some of those things, but he has zero experience. He's been in a school production as a performer, and that's it. So there isn't much point to him having all these qualifications. So it's interesting, because on paper he looks really good, but in standing in front of me, he hasn't got a clue about anything.
Yeah,
so that's been interesting.
But in saying that, also a blank canvas as well.
Yeah, very definitely, and that has been wonderful, because he's still actually interested in learning how things go. He hasn't learned yet that sweeping a giant stage is mind-numbingly boring, because he hasn't done it. So yay! Let's get him onto those.
But it's necessary. We have a question. Yeah, we have a question here from Johnny. What do you do when a young tech that they think they are senior and knows everything but don't even act like one? I'll read it again. What do you do when a young tech that they think they are senior and knows everything but they don't even act like one? Yeah, so a young tech, they think you're senior and knows everything, but they don't even act like one.
I guess from what perspective, were you managing this person or are you the client?
Yeah, doesn't say, but sounds like they're a junior person and they're thinking that they're managing. Johnny's just come back and said managing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's always a trick.
That's always a tricky one.
It's also not uncommon at the moment, because there's a definite, what I would call, generational change in viewpoint and outlook, and a lot of those, we'll call it younger techs, are very tech savvy, and can find all sorts of information but don't actually have the hands-on experience to back it up. Your best way to deal with those kind of people is you need to challenge them, and ultimately they do need to be told that they are not as good as they think, and sometimes that's really hard, and it's got hard for the employer or manager, because you're actually not allowed to. You've got to go through a proper process now. You can't actually. One of my notes to do with this is there's no such thing as a full and frank discussion anymore, where once upon a time you would have told the tech to pull his head in or whatever, and made it very, very clear what was or wasn't. Everywhere's a lot grayer now, and because it's a lot grayer, it's actually harder to get through to those kind of people and lead them and make them understand that perhaps they do need to take a different approach, that they do still have something to learn.
Yeah, it's that situation where you don't know what you don't know sometimes. I've had younger techs who, like, I agree with you, Deb, they're really amazing on paper, but their trade craft is pretty weak. Just simple things like, starting shows, how do you start a show if you're a lighting operator? All those, procedures that, after, 20 odd years, you just take for granted. But if you're fresh into the industry, and often it's people haven't actually told them. Some people, a lot of casuals get thrown in, because they do have skill sets, they get thrown into the deep end. So I agree with Andre, that whole thing about procedure is, it's a lot more explicit now in terms of employment relationships, but it's also, sometimes it's as simple as just saying that's not the way you do it. there's certain protocols we should be following, and different houses have different rules as well.
Yeah.
So I
I mean,
think
there's a whole bunch of what I would call etiquette there that once upon a time was passed on from the old heads through the people coming up, and a lot of that is not happening anymore to a degree. I mean, our skills active stuff is great, and a question for Deb's got to be: is your man that's got qualifications up the wazoo, has he done the skills active stuff? Is he doing that? Because that should have given him some experience.
I would say he's working on it. He's getting more experience as time goes on, but it's very slow and it's kind of limited. Now, who was I just thinking about? I think he's in university now, a university student come in during my 3 weeks of maintenance time earlier this year, and he talked the talk. He really acted like he knew everything. He was doing a lot of what they call mansplaining to the other technicians in the room, and we all got very quickly over it. So I think we ended up having to have a bit of a sort of a group discussion of, okay, so this is, maybe it was like a toolbox talk. Okay, what we're doing this afternoon is this, and such is going to lead it, and thingy bobby, to sort of make it clear as a groups, and he was included in that group, that that this person was running this section. It didn't actually stop him. He still carried on the same way he'd been acting, but at least it had been made clear to everybody else, this guy is not in charge, it's all of these people. So they kind of took it all much more with grains of salt. And that's probably the way it works best when there is a big team, is to have that toolbox talk and to make it clear who's leading each section, and so that that person maybe can stop thinking that they have to manage things or have to run it, or that they are in charge, because it's been made clear that they're not.
Yeah, the likes of a toolbox meeting is a good way to set expectation, that's for sure. I have a comment here from Paul. I've always been defined senior, not so much as skills or qualifications and everything, but as experience to take on responsibility and react to developing situations.
Yeah, it's that leadership thing. I was just going back to what Deb was saying. I think one of the challenges we've got is in our industry is, we've moved away from those, the in-house crew. And when I started in Wellington, there were 4 or 5 techs at the Opera House, and those were the seniors. You learnt from them, and you did what you did the way you were told.
You.
Now, we've moved more to the freelance pool, and often the case when you turn up for a job, you're designated the senior for whatever reason, and whether you knew it or not, and you are in a position of leadership. So
a couple more comments here. One from Guy. You've got to do the dumb jobs before you get to do the fun jobs, which is true.
Accurate.
Sweeping the floor. And also one from Spencer. In an industry where we have new technology and practices being integrated alongside century-old techniques, how do we move towards having everyone comfortable to share skills and get the job done? What are the best ways for a new practitioner to approach a long-standing one with a new concept? There are venues that are using handline overstage rigging with moving lights and ACN network systems all under the same roof. At the end of the day, we all need to band together and get the show open, ego aside.
Yeah, ego's always a trick.
That's a goodie.
And that's when I think good managers come into play, and I think we're probably more specialists is where we're heading rather than generalists with technology, and what you need when you've got a lot of specialists is really good leadership. So those senior techs will, that's where they need to step up. They need to be good leaders and pinpointing who's the right person for the job, rather than the general all muck in kind of approach. it's an interesting. Just before COVID, I spent some time in the Netherlands, and a couple of the theatres I'd moved to were looking at. They'd moved from counterweight to electronic fly systems, and I met this guy who was probably in his late 60s. He was an absolute behemoth of a chap, and he'd always worked as a mechanist or in flies, and he'd retrained on this this electronic system. So there's hope for all of us. But it's that embracing new technology and not, demonizing it. I think there's it's a two-way street. Young people and older people coming together and sharing ideas to make things better is a beautiful thing.
Anything to add there, Deb or Andre?
Yeah, it's definitely two ways, and there's got to be give and take from both sides. One issue that we've seen down here is trying to get the younger, sharper guys to actually respect what's gone on before them or how things have done. Sometimes it's the way is still relevant, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes there is a change that the older person needs to embrace, and sometimes the approach of the younger person, if it was just a little bit different, or they thought about their approach, they would get a better reaction from the older guy, if that makes sense. So, they need to read the room, so to speak, with regards to who and how they're dealing, the information they've got, particularly as some of the young people are as sharp as, because where technology is certainly taking a hand, in our industry.
Yeah.
I've got both extremes here in the building at the moment. I have the older generation who is kind of resistant to change, and I've also got the young upcoming people whose the only gear they've ever worked with is new fandangled LEDs that daisy chain together, and they're moving and coloring, and they just sit at a desk and program everything. And then there's the people who have only ever worked with the incandescent plug in each one gets its own channel, old and crusty styles, which has been interesting watching them trying to find common ground to talk about, and that would appear to be angles and colors. But in terms of actually plugging things in and making them go, it's been challenging for both ends to understand how it works, because they've never worked together with all of the gear all at the same time. So it's been really interesting watching that, the information flow, or sometimes not flow, because it's just not their idea of a good time, really. But it's been, I think, a learning experience, certainly for me, to watch that interaction happen, because I've had more experience with the older crusty stuff, so I get on well with the older generation, and I'm learning more about the new stuff more and more all the time, but sometimes there's a bit of resistance from both ends. And the younger techs coming through, they've only ever had the new fandangled, they don't understand the old stuff, and it's a bit like saying these are building blocks, remember, this is all we had until not that long ago, so please come and play with our building blocks before you show us your new fancy ray gun, if you follow along with that analogy. It's been it's definitely a respect-based thing. You've got to have respect going in both ways, and a willingness to learn, to get that experience, that knowledge. Really?
Yeah, well, we have a couple of sayings that float around this venue, and the young people are the future. Well, unfortunately, getting longer in the tooth, so not potentially going to be around forever and a day. So there needs to be someone to fill the gap down the track. Yeah. So, but yes, like you say, respect's a big thing, and you can't put a old head on young shoulders. They have to learn the ropes somewhere. So it is a process, but yeah, it's a case of imparting the knowledge that more senior practitioners within the industry have onto our younger people, so they can benefit from our wealth of knowledge and wisdom, for the lack of a better word. Yeah,
it's a lot of human nature coming in there, and it's part of our industry being so tenuous that it's understandable that older technicians are slightly threatened by somebody that's can do things a whole bunch faster with and a whole bunch easier than they've ever had.
Yeah. But in saying that, they've still got a lot to learn from the likes of ourselves anyway.
Yeah, it's that balance is really critical.
Mm.
And it's something, the older you get, hanging out with some of those older technicians is, looking back on it, some have been invaluable. What they weren't actually teaching you at the time, but you learned so much from, and having people like Peter Gear at the Opera House. I love spending time with Peter because his tradecraft is impeccable, and his sense of humor is fantastic as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't beat a dry sense of humour. A message here from Andrew. I'm always excited to see new young folk in the industry. Welcome.
Hell yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Keep bringing them in.
Totally.
They've got new ideas, new energy, new excitement. It's just fantastic. I've just lost my pencil. Pardon me. Definitely enjoy the newbies.
We've been really lucky. Last festival we did. We had some amazing young techs come through. A good mix. It was almost 50-50 there for a while, male and female, which is really nice to see. And really good skill sets, great attitude. Communication skills were fantastic too, which is really nice. And they were a big part of a great team.
Yeah, if there's any other questions out there, just fire them through to us, and as I spoke. A message here from Em, whoever Em is. What are your thoughts of pay rates for young folk with tech skills and the right attitude, but not experience, who seem to be seeking similar rates for those who have experience? Yeah, so what are your thoughts on pay rates for young folk with tech skills and the right attitude, but not experience, who seem to be seeking similar rates to those that do have the experience?
The market tends to dictate the pay rate. It from an employer's point of view, the conversations about wages and what you pay someone are the hardest conversations I have in business, and the ones that I enjoy the least, because you're forced to put a value on someone's skill, and it's very hard to apportion a dollar figure on somebody that might be punctual, loyal, been with you a long time, perhaps not the sharpest tack in the box, but they're absolutely dependable, against the maybe younger or the person that can operate every single console and can put the lighting director together, but has to be coerced and steered to pay attention because they are so bright. They struggle to find stuff to challenge them. I think our industry has got a long way to go with wages, and that's something that the skills active stuff hopefully is going to bring to the forefront. The government that's currently in power is selling a we all need to be being paid more kind of concept. That's all well and good, but someone's still got to pay for those increased wages, and our industry is one where A, promoters are not wanting to pay more, and B, there's always another company that'll do it cheaper. So trying to steer oneself through those kind of minefields or over those hurdles is an ongoing challenge.
Yeah, pay rates have always been a challenge, especially in business. You know, when you're running a small business, you know, profit margins have always been squeezed. I'm finding, just, you know, talking Wellington local, there's a lot of pressure on the labour market in Wellington at the moment. Film industry is going gangbusters, and also if you're a smart tech, you've got skills that can go across a lot of different industries. And when COVID hit, you know, I didn't see many people not working. They were, you know, doing all sorts of other jobs, whether it's driving or whatever, you know. So you've got to, yeah, pay rates have been an issue. Now, we've always tried to jack them up as much as we can, but obviously publicly funded organisations, you know, under a lot of pressure as well. So it's a real balancing act. I just picked up on something Andre was saying about that, you know, the young, really qualified technician who needs, you know, reminder about focus. I think sometimes those older heads can drive better value for a business, you know, when you're staying focused to schedules and you know, delivering what's required for a client, you know, in a timely fashion, and keeping your team moving in the right direction. So although you might have a lot of skills on paper, sometimes it's not worth as much as, you know, that experience of, you know, working with people a lot.
Yep. I've got some more questions and so forth in there. One from JR. For techs of any age or experience level, how do each of you log/track an individual's skill level and growth? Also, how much time do you dedicate towards building skills compared to simply using them in working situations?
Good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I as an industry, I don't think we invest enough in training, training staff, whether it's private or public. I think it's something we need to look at. How do you log it? I mean, you know, from experience, it's often anecdotal. So how many tours has somebody, you know, has somebody gone away on tour and, you know, achieved that? Yes, they have. So they're kind of moving up the ladder. They take on more responsibility based on those sorts of things. It's real life experience is probably what I use the most to gauge somebody's experience.
Yeah. Quite often these days, if somebody pops up and says, hey, I'm new and I want to work more at your theatre, I end up having a cup of tea with them and an introduction to the building, a bit of an orientation, a sort of an induction of not just this is where the fire extinguishers are, but also having a one-on-one chat of where have you worked before? What kind of jobs have you done? What was your favorite part of those jobs? What are you looking to learn more about in future? As well as what can you actually do? So I've had somebody come in and yes, they're just a soundie in their words, but they want to learn about lighting because they've done sound now. They've done that. They want to move on. They want to move over sideways. So they're willing to come in and do some pack-ins, some pack-outs to just learn the physicalities of moving a fixture, you know, pointing it in the right direction, all that sort of stuff, because they've seen other people do it and figure how hard can it be. So while they would be earning, back to the pay rates thing, top dollar as a soundie, they're back down to the beginning again, almost as a lighting crew, for a very short amount of time, probably because they're smarting onto it, until they figure out what it actually is. And who knows, they might move on to costumes next. I don't know. But I do know when I've met them, had a cup of tea with them, just how how onto it, I suppose they are or would like to be or something. But then I'm in a place of leisure where I can do that because I work for Circa. I'm not just going from job to job to job to job. So I get a lot of people through this building, and I have lost a lot of people to film and TV and Auckland recently in the last couple of years. So I'm getting a lot of the newbies, and I'm loving them all. They're all awesome because they are enthusiastic, like I haven't seen for a while. And they do all have their own plans about where they're going, what they want, as well as what they can already do. So it's all kind of a big blend, really, of everything all at once. But I don't know about a position such as Paul or Andre have, whether they can take that time or whether they just get presented with, ta-da, here's your group of technicians that you're working with today. I don't know. Can you guys do that? Take that time?
And take a little bit. Yeah, sorry, Andre, you go.
That's all right. Hey, so we've started doing what we call a skills matrix, where we kind of, it's a little bit abstract, but you just sort of objectively look at the person. You've got a list of their skills, and the skills can be anything from answering the phone, what licenses do they have, can they use hand tools, are they ladder savvy, can they run chain motors by themselves, can they teach somebody. So you run through and you give them all we'll call it a mark out of 5, and then you get a tally at the end, which actually gives you an indication of where someone sits in the group that you've got employed. If a couple of you that are managers or directors do that, it's quite interesting how different people view different people, and that can give you quite an insight into where someone fits in a work environment. And I mean, we're looking at doing that more often. And if you do it once a year, you can kind of gauge whether the person is on a flat trajectory or a rising trajectory, or they're just marking time, kind of going downhill. Contractors are a little bit different because most of the time you're employing a contractor for a skill. So they've either sold themselves to you with a particular bunch of skill sets, or they've got those. So they're two slightly different scenarios. You know, you might have a contractor come to you that's just said, "Oh, I've just got my class 4 and 5 licenses, and I'm happy to, you know, go out on the road with your truck." The first question I ask is how much mileage have you got? And can I show in his hands? You know, big question.
Yeah. Yep. Moving along, we've got another question here from Guy. Cell phones, how do you teach young techs to stay off their phone? And when they see us senior techs using them for work? That'll be a bit of a hot topic, I think.
Yeah, I read that, and then I thought, sometimes those young techs are on their cell phone because they're working on them. It's a trick when you're a contractor because you're looking for your next job when you're on your job. So and that's often why. But yeah, it's a pain in the ass as well.
Yeah,
it's really easy. It's very, very easy. You take the cell phone off them.
Yeah.
If I'm paying a contractor to be working on my concert site or in my theatre, he can check his phone during his morning, lunch and dinner break. I'm not expecting to see him even have his phone out. It can stay in a bag. And the same with staff and you know, other people. You take it off them. You make it very clear at the outset. And we don't have too much of a problem with that.
And it becomes a health and safety issue at the end of the day as well.
Exactly. If they're not concentrating on the job because they're looking at their phone, then you just got to say to them, yo, put that away. That's not cool, man.
Yeah.
Excellent. Then there's another question here from Simon. Hourly rates versus day rates, minimum call times?
Yeah, I've always been up for minimum call times. We're trying to work on dailies a bit more. It's horses for courses. It depends on the gig.
Yeah.
And whether I'm the client or the producer, I don't know what be slightly different for a production house. I guess, Andre.
Yeah, I'm of the generation where day rates were very much the norm. I like day rates from an employer's point of view. And unfortunately, our millennials that have turned up, the first or second thing they do once the day rate's been negotiated or they've worked for you is they start dividing the hours into the day. They don't actually see a day as being just a day that you can't do anything else except the job that's in front of them. They want $1 for every hour that they're working. And we've actually reverted pretty much back to hourly rates. Just because it's easier and cleaner. We also have systems in place to make it easy for people to tell us the hours that they've worked. Once upon a time, you're on tour or you're away from home, or keeping track of the hours was a pain. But now they can do it off their smartphone. If they don't put the hours in that they work, they don't get paid. It's that simple. So we've made that, we've streamlined that, but it's the daily rate is almost becoming awkward now. And some of that's because we can't get it up high enough to make it fair. They get to 10 or 12 hours and that's the day. And I cop a shellacking here about people working 16 or 18 hours in a day. But that still occurs in our industry. I'd like to think it's not a matter of normality as it once was, but it does still occur. And it's no longer acceptable to be clipping a day as being 18 hours. They want either a day and a half or they want to be paid for each of those 18 hours individually. So it comes back to I do think our industry needs to look at the what and the how we pay people, whether they be contractors or staff or whatever. And one of my comments at the AGM was,
yeah, looks like we've lost Andre there again at the moment. Comment from John Adams: as Paul says, attitude and communication is highly important.
Yeah. G'day, John. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Andre's still busy trying to talk there in the background.
It's that long grass in Canterbury.
Yeah. Yeah. While he's busy trying to talk to us, there's another. Oh no, here he is. He's back again. Gone again. The anonymous attendee, there's still a fair amount of sexism in the industry, unfortunately. Coming from a senior female tech point of view, some younger males sometimes think that we know nothing. What are the thoughts on that from the panelists?
It's not good enough.
It's a fact.
And it's, you just call that stuff out. There's no place for it. And I know it's really hard for female techs to, feel like they have to stand up for that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, manager or senior tech to call it out, take that person aside and have a good chat.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Deb?
No, I see it all the time.
Mm.
It is very common. It doesn't even need to be a young male, it's just any male. And it doesn't even need to be a senior female tech. It could be any female tech. It's extremely common, like it is the world over, all industries. But yeah, you've got to have a cool, calm approach to it, and yeah, call it out, and just it doesn't have to be in front of anybody. It could just be quietly in a corner and just be like, you're out of line here. We've got to sort this out. This is not good behavior.
Yep.
It can be as brief as that.
Yeah, unacceptable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Andre? Yeah.
Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
Try that.
Yeah, there you go.
I missed the question, but I believe it was about bullying.
No, sexism.
Sexism.
Bullying's part of it, though.
Well,
either or, it's not unacceptable. It is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another comment here from John. Client and customer service, hugely important, regardless of age.
Yeah. And that's something, you know, when you come in fresh, that's one of the things that tradecraft thing that sort of defines that junior senior crossover is the exposure to clients and how to, you know, the hardest person on the team you've got to deal with is often the client, and just how you do it. There's that people skills, and that's not saying that, you know, some young folk or folk new to the industry have got great people skills, and you know, they can just run with that, and it'll be a great skill for them, and others just don't. And I've had young techs who have been amazing, like most, you know, great experience, fantastic skill sets, and they've just been rubbish with people. You know, so can you cultivate them into being a senior? It's actually quite hard, because, you know, dealing with clients is a big thing that we do, and it's, you know, one of those traditional things that we've had to break through a little bit is, you know, oh, the tech's always grumpy. You know, I don't think there's a place for that anymore. The tech is, you know, just has got as much to do with selling venues and products as anybody else. So we have to be really good with clients.
Yeah.
And I think it also depends on what the thing is that you're working on. Is it a corporate gig? Is it a theatre show? Is it a giant musical with 200 people involved? Like, what is the thing? Who is the client? What is the final outcome? Because if somebody is on a corporate gig and all they need is uplights, you might not need people skills for that. But if you've got a chorus and an orchestra and a who knows what, you're going to need those people skills, something wicked, to make sure that that client is happy with whatever the final product is.
I reckon something we miss about the corporate world is that these people are spending a huge amount of money, and are only doing it one day of the year, and it's their big gig. So whereas when you're dealing with orchestras and those people, that's their job. They're kind of used to that interaction. So I feel sorry for the corporates. Some, you know, geez, I'm kicking myself now saying I feel sorry for the corporates. But I do, you know, they're under a lot of pressure. Often the time, you know, it's the event manager and they've got a CEO, you know, breathing down their neck.
Definitely.
So, yeah. But they also, the other trick there, and it's a really good learning experience, is they don't know our language. So you've got to start from scratch every time, which becomes really boring, of course, but it's a necessity. And you find those techs that actually can do it. James Woods springs to mind for some crazy reason, which you wouldn't expect.
Absolutely.
Tell you what, if you put James Woods on your audio team for a corporate gig, you know, you just chuck him in front of the client and
Yep.
you're good to go.
Yep. Absolutely.
Some people have got the gift of the gab.
Excellent. Anything to add there, Andre?
I just think we, young and old, need to remember that we're a service industry, and as such, there's another tech behind another door that will be willing to do the job that we're doing, just like there's another company with a warehouse full of lights and trussing and bits and bobs that'll be more than happy to step up to the line and provide. I mean, it's you know, you've got to treat every gig as your last, and it shouldn't be about the money. You know, it should be about the end result. It should be about achieving what the client wants to see, and that client can be the bigger than Ben Hur corporate, or it can be the primary school down the road where it is the simplest thing. But you know, you've just got to try and treat them all with the same respect. You know, because you never know when that primary school or that small job or hire turns into the great big, you know, big hire. From acorns you get oak trees, you know, and you just need to build on it all the time, 100% of the time, always.
Yep.
Yep, excellent. There's a message here from Paul. Does anyone have any recommendations on software for skills matrix? I've been using Excel, but it's quite time intensive. Now I have seen Andre's matrix here for shows he's been contracted to bring through, and it's on Excel and it's a wonderful document. Guys, do you know of any software solution out there for that sort of thing?
No, I don't. Excel seems to be the default for a lot of things these days.
Yes,
Yeah, that's I just use it because, you know, I'm not particularly literate, but I can make that work. So, you know, it works. Yes, it's time consuming, but once you've set it up the first time, every other time after that is actually easier.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure Microsoft never intended Excel to be used for something like that. But anyway, moving right along, Graeme Anderson. Hi, folks. Lovely to see you all. I've been working in the screen in screen a bit lately, and there seems to be more of an awareness on who's at what level. The other thing about screen work is that the conditions of work are clearly defined. It is time for our industry to think about our own blue book. Thoughts on that?
Hi, Graham. It's screen is such a, you know, traditionally such a defined industry, you know, with clearly defined departments, whereas we often cross over. I mean, you know, I remember back to my young days, is you know, the two guys in a van driving around the South Island with a PA and a bunch of lights, and you did pretty much every job that you needed to do to get the gig happening. Whereas that's just not the case in film. So I think we will head towards that more and more in our industry, or we should do, so that we do have clear definitions of what people's jobs are. I'm not sure if COVID's going to help that, though.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the next couple of years is going to be an interesting time for our industry.
Yeah. Yeah, we're starting to get to the pointy end. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so any final questions, if they can come through now, and we'll answer them quickly. One here from John Adams. Hi all, awesome forum. What are your thoughts on the ways of showing gratitude for work well done? Also on the flip side, on discipline, again, regardless of age, experienced or inexperienced.
Job well done. I hire them again and again and again and again, and put their name forward for everything. And yeah, pretty much. I mean, as well as saying on the day, this was a really great work day and you've done an excellent job, and thank you very much for everything. Those are the obvious things. Not sure about the disciplining one. I don't often
need to
feel
do
I need to do that.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Where disciplines involved, discretion and respect are very definitely needed. So we now live in a world where absolutely reaming somebody out publicly is going to get you in a power of trouble and cause you an awful lot of grief. So it's a matter of, once again, knowing the protocols. One solution won't fit every occasion, so you've got to look at it. If you're going to bark at someone because they're about to do something dumb and someone's going to get hurt, you're going to bark at them. There's no point taking them aside afterwards and say, well, actually, that wasn't such a good idea. And in the meantime, the guy's getting picked up off the floor with a broken leg because he was daft. You know, you need to balance what you're looking at, and it comes down to, and I think we've mentioned this a number of times through this, having good managers. You know, there's a lot of need for good managers. You know, they need to be able to see some of that stuff. They also need to recognize when a quiet word with somebody is gonna go the distance, rather than a full blooded grievance process where, you know, you start with your letter or you start with your meeting and follow up with the letter, and then you've got another meeting and so on and so forth. The whole human resources situation that we're now dealing with as employers is a massive challenge. I mean, it really is. But yeah, timing is everything.
Yeah,
with that kind of stuff, particularly discipline.
Excellent. Now, for those that are disappearing, wanting to go into a couple of the other streams, we are now going to run over time, which we can do because there's nothing in the space for the next wee while. But if you have to head off to one of the other streams, it is now 2:15. Yeah, so there's before I go into Tim's message, there's a note there from Kate. I've brought up the idea of a blue book for our industry before with the ETNZ, but the executive wasn't interested. I'll quite happily put that back up on the table, and we'll have a discussion about that. So yeah, more than happy to put that up there again and see whether it's something that the exec wants to do something with or not. Message from Tim Robertson. Conversely, it is equally important for juniors to develop in confidence to communicate effectively with the client when their expectations are unrealistic. This can save a lot of stress and time for everyone. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the case with is that clear but kind routes, whether it's corporate or theatre or whatever you're working on. The sooner you cut to the chase, with the only thing, the caveat there would be without restraining the creative process. So that's the line that we, the fine line we have to tread. Even corporates will be trying to be as creative as possible with what they want to achieve, but and we need to let them go there. But at the end of the day, have they got enough money to pay for it? Do they have enough time? All the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Deb?
I agree.
Yeah, agree.
That's all I've got.
Excellent. Andre?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the no word's a difficult one to use, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be used.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, well, we've cleaned up all the messages there. So let's wind up this session. Firstly, thank you guys for making the time available to talk about this. So I think there was some interesting discussion there. So hopefully everybody that was involved enjoyed that. If you're heading off to one of the other webinars, in stream 2, storytelling, creating visitor experiences and exhibitions. Stream 3, technical education in schools. It's a forum session. So that's what is just in the process of starting. And yes, again, I'd just like to thank our trade show exhibitors that have unfortunately missed out on plugging their wares. Yeah, please have a look through their websites and so forth, and show them that you care. Yeah, the exhibitors include Aspiring Safety, Fiasco Limited, Jans New Zealand, John Herbert Limited, Kendadyne Electrical Lighting, Entertainment Lighting, LSC Group, MDR Sound and Lighting, Metro Productions, Scenic Solutions, Showquip, Show Technology, Stagemark Limited, Theatre Light, ULA Group, and suppliers that were supporting the physical conference. Production Transport, Grouse, Metro, Sugar Sisters, Tafaya, Foxglove, Southern Cross, Strongback Crewing, and Hiremaster. Yeah, so those guys should not be forgotten, that's for sure. They've put a lot of effort in, and unfortunately they weren't able to do their thing. So yeah, once again, guys, thank you for your time today. It is really appreciated.
Thank you, Fraser.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to see you guys. Nice to see you, Andre, Deb.
Likewise.
See
Take
you
care.
all.
Yeah.
See you later.
See you.
Jerry. Hey.
Excellent.